My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice is cold. I'm only here to even a score. Whoa. My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice is cold. We down right now, but did it before. Whoa. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up.
Good evening, Night Nation. It's a cold one in Santa Rosa Beach. It is freezing. It is snowing. It is snowing. I live in Florida. This is not supposed to happen. It hasn't happened since 1984, but I've got at least 3 inches of snow on the ground, and there's more coming. So if you look at the channel, either at the channel or at our Twitter, you'll see the progress as this moves along. I'm not used to this. I don't want this, etc. However, we're not here to talk about the snow tonight. We are here to talk about you and with you. So remember, you can hit us up at any time. We are the United Ones podcast. This is episode number 72, and we are the only podcast that features a former UCF national champion, a former UCF radio host, an ESPN analyst and hoops player, an infamous, yes, that's infamous rapper, our resident influencer and IG star shooting the breeze, talking UCF sports. Remember to like and follow us on YouTube, IG, and check out the 70-plus teams and conferences on the College Huddle, Big 12 Huddle, 4th in Florida when we get back to it, and some of our new live streams, which this is one. So thank you guys for joining us. We love it when you're interacting with us, and appreciate your support. Thank you to Alan for holding it down last week. Nobra did not get a shout out as he should have because he did produce the show, but let's go ahead and bring him back to the stage. Nobra, what's up, bro?
Hey now.
Hey now. See, they messed it all up last week. No, I'm just kidding. They did a great job talking, but they didn't give you your due. Let's get that patented hair flip. All right, there we go. All right. Next to the stage, the podcast world, and especially the UCF podcast world, only 7-footer, the man who has to duck through every normal doorway, Ben Stout. What's up, bro?
What's up, guys? Yeah, it was kind of my idea to go live right after the Iowa State game tonight. We have some interesting things to talk about when it comes to that game, but hey, it's a risky take, and we'll chat Night Nation through it no matter what.
Well, we do have some more football news for this week, but we'll definitely be talking a lot of hoops. I told Ben when he made the suggestion, I was like, this can go one of two ways. Yeah. Either we're going to have a great game and we're going to be super excited, or we're not. So interesting game, especially when we put up as many points as we did. Someone who did not put that many points up in any of his basketball scores, however, did so in bowling, Josh Lazar.
I was wondering where that was going. Yeah, listen. All I'm saying is this. I did not attend the Houston game, even though I wanted to, so I probably should have. And I also did not attend the Arizona State game, even though I was literally 17 minutes from the stadium. And that's probably good I didn't do that either.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. You did. Did you go to the Arizona? I think you went to the Arizona game, didn't you?
I went to the Arizona game. I actually flew in that morning, and it was fun talking to the people going to the stadium as the rare person not wearing red or a blue or white going there. That I was in Orlando earlier that day, and that really shocked the heck out of people. Usually the follow-up was, so do you travel with the team like this all the time? And going to the business reasons for being there. But that was also the reason I didn't go to the Arizona State game, as we were hosting a clients and friends dinner. And I just, sometimes business comes first. And again, I didn't.
Thankfully, you did not go because we won.
UCF basketball comes first as well, so I appreciate you not going to that game there, Josh.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Again, I didn't go to Houston. Didn't help.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And, I will say this. It did help though, because that game was a close game and was within our grasp. I mean, it was a one-score game. If we shot like the free throw shooting team that we normally are, we absolutely would have won that game. So, Josh, you still did help in spite of you not showing up. So I'm glad you didn't show up.
Thank you.
As we've said all along, we support your decision to sell your tickets anytime during basketball season, and football for that matter. That being said, let's get right into it. We've got a little bit of text talk this week. I think we should just talk about the most relevant text talk we just had, which was with the game against Iowa State. Ben, why don't you give us your choice of text talk this week? I always put you on the spot. So
you always do. Yes, that's quite all right. Well, actually, Josh, if you got one, I will go after you.
Of course. So, I have a couple because a lot of it, I'll be honest, it was so out of hand. I went back to watching the Knicks for a hot minute, which no bro would probably appreciate. And they finally won. They had a one-score game at 22 seconds left. I mean, this game, we had a one-score game, 8 minutes into the game. Anyway,
well, we had the lead. We had the lead for a while there.
So I was talking about this in a couple different ways. The run to push to 18 in the first half was the end of the game by Iowa State. Arizona made that push, and we came back in. They made that push pretty quickly, and right after that, we shot ourselves out of a little bit, stepped up on defense, and got it to 2 points, and had a lot of people in that arena kind of worried, but not, if you will. This happened again today, and I feel like that was about when the press stopped too. It was a lot of in that first 8-10 minutes. The press was good. Everything was clicking for the most part, and Iowa State was still doing pretty darn good because they're a darn good team. Shooter being injured without that.
Well, they have a great 12th man too, or on the floor at all times. And I'm just saying, they're the vertical version. The vertical version of Ben's background is those guys.
I will tell you that in that Colorado game when I was there and we won, thank you. That was definitely, and I ranted on this a little bit. That was definitely Buffaloes and Zebras versus Knights. I don't know. I don't want to be that Homer fan that is all about.
They were throwing punches on the way up and everything else. Look, I'm going to stop you. This was like a Cincinnati game was back in the day when we were in the AAC. They were clotheslining people. The difference was they were getting away with it even more so in this game.
I'll see this. The one that Keyshawn asked for the review of, that was not the one that we should have probably said, hey, let's look at it. It wasn't great.
Well, let's be clear. The refs didn't review that because Keyshawn asked them to review it. They reviewed it because they thought there was an elbow to the face on Keyshawn.
It might be a flagrant.
And it might have been a flagrant one that they would have upgraded. It
wasn't even close.
It was just a bonus that he got to look, he got to review it, even though it just remained the same.
Yeah, it's
I'll say when it mattered in the first half, I felt like we did not get the benefit of the doubt. Putting it lightly, we did not get the benefit of the doubt on almost every call, and that's where it was tough. It seemed like they were letting them play. They weren't letting us play. Like it seemed like every kind of 50-50 call either went their way or just any physicality around the rim was penalized. We were penalized for that, not necessarily them. So I definitely, it was going to be tough to beat Iowa State, which is arguably the best team in the country. I still think, despite them losing on the road to West Virginia, they're still the best team in the country, or very, very darn close to it. Obviously, they're ranked number 3, so they are close to it. But they're an excellent basketball team, and it's really tough to beat that team on the road. It's even tougher in the first half when it really matters, when we're kind of battling them, bringing in everything to them that we possibly can. It's tough when you're getting or not getting the right calls from the refs. I mean, that's it. that combined with missing those bunnies around the rim, which is something that all of us mentioned in our text talk.
Yeah.
Just missing those kind of short ones around the rim that we had the opportunities, especially in the first half. They're momentum killers overall. And we had a lot of that happen tonight where
I think
there we go.
Ben, are you back?
Am I back? Hello?
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
It's raining. It's not snowing here in Orlando or in a
The ghost of Benjamin Past has come back.
Yeah, it's not snowing, but it's definitely raining. But we just had a lot of things that needed to go our way in order to be able to hang in there with a top team in the country like this, and it just didn't quite work out. And then I just think in the second half it just kind of got out of hand once they're going up against our second lineup, and that's what I wanted to say as far as text talk is. I mentioned it in the first half, and we kind of talked about it throughout the game. But there was with about 9 minutes left in the first half, we had seen a lineup from Johnny Dawkins and from this team and I'm not quite sure if it was just because of foul trouble that Keyshawn Hall got in. I think it really was, or something maybe that DJ was even dealing with in the first half as far as whatever injury he had that kept him out in the second. But we saw some lineups in this game, especially initially in the first half with with RJ, with Rokas and Chiam in the lineup at the same time. and some other people in that lineup in particular, Dior Johnson, Mikey Williams. That's a lineup that we haven't seen all season, and there was multiple lineups in this game that we had not seen all season, and I think a lot of that may have been necessary because of just because of some of the weird things that happened with foul trouble or injuries or whatever happened in this game. But it was some strange lineups out there that really in the first half, we were down by 2 with about 10 minutes left. And that lineup kind of came in after Keyshawn Hall went down with his second foul. That lineup kind of came in, and it just unfortunately just didn't work for us. And they were able to pop the lead to 18 at the end of the half.
So a few things, going back to the text talk, I'll just point out one of my text talks is Iowa State beat UCF's second team because they played the second team most of the game. There were some foul reasons for that. There was some thoughts. Actually, DJ came back with a sleeve on his leg, like a full sleeve on his leg. There's some rumor and buzz about maybe he didn't come in because he was a little too injured to come back in, because he was roughed up quite a bit by Iowa State. Wasn't called, but was roughed up quite a bit. But, for me, we thought the story of this game for Iowa State, they're known for their vaunted defense, right? But this wasn't a defensive game at all. This was an offensive game. UCF scored 83 points in this game. And for us, that's quite a bit. On average, we hold opposing offenses in the 60s, low 60s, usually 60 to 65, which means that if we score 83 points, and Juice was absolutely on fire offensively this game. He was hitting, he got his groove back, so to say, because no, seriously. Yeah,
no, you're right.
Because in the past few games, he has not played well offensively. And so he got his groove back. But the challenge is we shot almost 50%. Most of the game we were shooting 50% from 3. We ended up shooting 45%. We shot 43% from the field goal. That's a good offensive day. And putting 80 points up is a good offensive day. Iowa State did not play good defense. However, we played worse defense. And the reason we played worse defense, I think, and I feel, is because, to Ben's point and what he was just talking about when the text talk and we were all talking about, is the lineup that Iowa State was playing was not our tier 1 lineup. And you could see that in the type of defense that we were playing and the switching and how they got confused. We saw a lot of Mikey minutes this game, which Actually, Mikey continues to show me, we had a lot of questions of him coming in, that he's coming along. He's getting his chops.
Yeah.
I like his game a lot. He's got speed. He's got the floater. He's cuts. I think the one thing I'd like to see more from him is to cut to the rim, because he's becoming less of a threat. People have started getting tape on him to actually take it to the hole, and he ends up passing, and he's a good passer. He's a great passer. But when you become predictable, then people fall off of that, and that stops pulling defenses in onto you for you to go ahead and pass the ball off. But he's got a good shot. He's got a super quick step. I mean, he is fast. He's got great game when he's passing the ball. So I loved seeing that. Dior Johnson was all over the place. Our ball handling just isn't there without DJ. We need a captain. Juice, as good as he was offensively, he's a 2 guard because he speeds up the offense too much. And he's been playing hero ball. So obviously coach has kind of coached him out of that because he's been looking to pass more, but it's passes that are lazy, and you can't do that against a defense that's known for turnovers. And speaking of turnovers, assists to turnover ratio, you hear me talk about that all the time. UCF has done really well, 8 to 10 turnovers per game this season, and it's been a big part of our success. In this game, 19 turnovers. So 9 to 19. Conversely, Iowa State, 19 assists to 10 turnovers. So again, that's a huge, huge reason why that was why the game turned out the way it did. And boards, we got absolutely slammed on the glass, right? So we had 29 rebounds versus 43. Keyshawn Hall's tonight, there was like 3 different rebounds that he had, and he just slipped. I don't know what was going on with him. But put some stickum on that guy's hands, because like it was a little ridiculous. But offensive glass, not really that bad, 11 to 15. Defensive glass, though, 18 to 28. So they were getting a lot of second chance points that we just didn't stop. And then we were stretching our defense, and you would see either when guys were switching or when they were falling back into the defense. Guys didn't know their assignment in certain situations. And to me, that was more indicative of that second team playing, because we see better basketball defensively when we see those first teamers out there. So I would much rather have seen these guys switching individually as opposed to whole teams, but I also understand why it happened. But that was this game in a nutshell. I think it was a tale of defense. Iowa State didn't play it. We didn't play it. So they just outscored us because of the turnovers.
I think also on just speaking of the defense and how we maybe shot ourselves in the foot or kind of played in the hands of their defense, like we score 83 points, but like they were able to just accelerate to 108 points because we had some very untimely turnovers, and I think one of the differences between their defense and ours, and I guess it has a little bit to do with both sides of the ball, is that whenever we got a steal, it seemed like we struggled to convert on that turnover. And when they were getting steals, they were taking it the other way so fast, and they were converting because they're very efficient in their transition offense. They really feed off of that, getting steals, getting long rebounds, getting it down the court, and 1 pass, 2 passes, and they're shooting and they're making those shots. They're very efficient in kind of their transition offense. And I think that was one of the other differences tonight, is that when they seem to really make us pay when we turn the ball over, especially some of those backcourt turnovers that Dior Johnson and some others had. Juice Curry had a couple of them. I don't even call them silly turnovers. They were just we got forced into bad passes. And I think that I don't have that stat in front of me, but points off of transition off of turnovers, I think really favored them.
It's not going to be good.
Really favored them tonight, and yeah, it was just. I mean, even statistically, it looks kind of strange when you dig into it and you see 46% as a team from the 3-point line. Like that's pretty darn good for us. Especially, or really good for anybody. And then you look at our
Juice was killing it. At
Yeah,
one
I
point,
mean,
we
deep
hit 4
threes.
threes in a row, and then
Yeah.
it was like deep threes from everywhere.
Yeah, and even that stretch where we had 4 threes in a row, it started off by Debo Coleman hitting one, and then I'm pretty sure Juice hit 3 in a row at that point. Like even during that stretch, they had a 3 during that stretch and a 2 on almost every other possession, like while we were hitting those 3s. So it wasn't like we were going on a run while we were making shots, because they were answering us shot for shot. And I mean, you look at the overall field goal percentage being 42%, less than our 3-point percentage. I mean, that just goes to show you that we had a lot of tries at the basket that just weren't falling. I mean, even when we'd get the backside rebound off of a missed layup, we would miss that putback at least half the time, if not less, more than half the time. And so that was a struggle tonight. That's something that when you're missing layups like that, you're getting second chance opportunities, but you're not being able to take advantage of it. You're getting steals in the full court press, but you're not able to take advantage of it by scoring off of it. Those are momentum killers. And I'll be honest, I didn't see any type of give up by our team. So I am happy to see that. They didn't let that really suck the life out of them. It's just that when you're playing against a team that is relentless like Iowa State, they're gonna take advantage of that, and they're gonna kind of put their foot on the gas when you're down, and they're not going to let you back in it when you're giving up those kind of untimely turnovers or missing those easier shots down low. So I did like the offensive flow tonight from us. I didn't think that we were taking many bad shots, which is what we saw in some previous games, like Kansas comes to mind, and even Arizona at times. I didn't really feel like we ever really struggled from, not getting into our offense and getting good shots. We made some untimely turnovers, and we couldn't convert on the ones that were, for the most part, easier shots for us overall. Yeah.
Well, either way, ends up as an L.
Right.
I think if we all talked about this at the beginning of the season, we would have expected Houston and Iowa State to be a loss. Unfortunately, with Houston, that really should have been a dub. And if we would have come out 1-1 there, that would have been another quad 1 win for us. And I think, what did we say in early conference play? 3 was our goal. So we've gotten 3 out of 6 in that first
7,
group.
Yeah, this was the 7th, wasn't it? Yeah, it was the 7th of the
because we were 3-3 going into this. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And that's what we said, Roger. We said both of us said that on our conference preview show where we talked about this first 7 games. And we said, dang, I feel like we definitely should get 2 of these. I'm not sure where those 2 are coming from outside of Colorado, we said to ourselves. Or the second one, I should say. But getting 3, I'd be happy with. 4, I'd be ecstatic. And so I think we're right there where we expect. Obviously, you and I expected us to be when we talked about it before this 7-game stretch. The 3 wins that we got were very quality wins. 2 of those being quad 1 wins. The two of those being quad 1 wins on the road. And so,
which we didn't do well last year on the road. That was our Achilles heel.
Bad.
And
I think I hate to try to. It's not a moral victory by any means. Even the Houston game's not one, but the first 10 minutes, tonight, I know we lost by 25, so I'm not trying to say. It's just I'm not trying to put on my black and gold glasses here, but you saw continue to see in flashes, even in this game, especially in the first 10 minutes of the game, that we can hang with anybody, even on the road. I mean, besides Houston, Iowa State has the longest home winning streak in the country right now. And so they're a very tough opponent to play at home. And they certainly showed that as they busted it open in the second half. But we continue to show flashes and continue to show fight, and I like to see it.
Well, I think for us, it's the starters.
Yeah.
Like Iowa State cannot play, or we can play as well as one of the top ranked teams in the country with our starters. I think it hurt that DJ wasn't there to settle us down in spurts like he normally is. I called him in our text talk the honey badger because he's so cool and calm and collected, and he doesn't give up. Insert the F there. But you know, we were missing him tonight. Yeah, we were missing him tonight, right? And more so, one, to settle down the team. I think there's confidence in DJ, and you know, it'll be interesting. Actually, he might have a 5th year to play. One of the things we didn't get to talk about last week was the fact that the NCAA is reviewing, and the coaches have recommended that all teams or all players in the NCAA get and mandate a 5th year. So in other words, you get 5 years to play. Now, how that affects some of the other rules and regs that go with that, still to be figured out. There was suggestions made, but either way, a guy like DJ being able to play a 5th year, because let's be real, right now where his resume is as good a player as he is, he's not going to play in the NBA. He's going to be playing in Europe somewhere, or the Chinese league, or one of the foreign leagues, right? So, you know, if he has the chance with what the NIL is doing, which is another bit of news that we didn't talk about, you know, the rumors leaked out that it's about $8 million in NIL because another coach had mentioned that we have that much and that they don't when they were recruiting for football. You know, that our NIL pot was 8 million. I think it's up to 12 million this year. We will have, and it's expected to increase next year, because remember, we're going to start getting the Big 12 dollars next year. I expect that we'll be able to afford someone like DJ to keep him there. Now, obviously, the family ties help with JD and all of that other stuff, but it would actually be beneficial for someone like him to stay an extra year, get paid, you know, finish his master's degree, or if he's a PhD, who knows, at this point, right? He did graduate. I know that. So he's probably working on his master's degree, finish his 5th year here, and then move on. So I think in some cases for UCF, it actually might be advantageous if that 5-year policy goes through. It will also help us when we're recruiting folks that we're bringing in for 1 to 2 year stints. So this core nucleus of a team, if they do approve that 5-year rule as it pertains to basketball, you could see these players for longer than what we were anticipating to begin with. I'm not sure outside of Tiem if there is another NBA player on this roster. I don't think so based on what I've seen. But Tiem is already being projected as a 2026 number 35 pick. And we're not even halfway through the 2025 season yet. So Tiem will play in the league. He has a lot of things. He has a lot of things that Taco Fall has. You know, he needs to grow in his body some more, but he's got way better body control. He's got a good shot. He's got soft touch for a big man. So he can do a lot more things than what Taco could, and is very versatile when it comes to that. So I expect him to project well into the NBA. You know, that's kind of my takeaway, at least from Iowa State. We'll talk about Houston a little bit later. Let's go ahead and pivot. There it is. To football. We're actually going to talk football here. So we do have some news on the football front. UCF has added another transfer, wide receiver Dwayne Thomas Jr. from Charlotte, former 3-star from Miami Gardens. He played at Chaminade-Madonna, which is like the top program in Broward County, which is great because the Signals, again, we are back into that Miami area. We're starting to try to gain some traction there. And what's interesting about him is his body type. We remember from Frost's offenses of the past that he had some smaller scat bags. Wow, I can't say it. Scat bags. I said scat pack because I have one, right? If you looked at the Twitter, you could see my scat pack. And then I said scat back because I know I messed it up. And what I meant to say was a scat back. So he's 5'8" and he's 175 pounds. He's fourth wide receiver of UCF's transfer class. But here's the thing that's interesting about him. He plays an awful lot like some of the receivers and running backs or scat backs that we've seen in the past. Although he's not a running back, he's a wide receiver in that 10 to 15 yard level where you can get him the ball and get him going with a full head of steam. This guy played as a starter in one of the top programs in all of Broward County, which says a lot because Miami produces some of the best players. And his body type, that 5'8", 175-pound speed guy, reminds you an awful lot of Juice, and it also reminds you a lot of AK. Right? So someone who can catch out of the backfield and get moving. So this, to me, signals that we still want that type of guy to be able to move forward. Jeremy Johnson says, imagine if Frost had Johnny Richardson, what could he do? The interesting thing about Johnny Richardson is he was never used the way that he should have been used. Absolutely. And that was because I think Gus recognized the talent, but in order to run his offense, he also needed to go between the tackles. And Johnny Richardson's not built for that. So to your point, Jeremy, 100%, if they had a guy like this or Johnny Richardson in Frost's offense, I think that would have been great. I do think, looking back in the past, those two names, especially Juice, was more, how should I say this? He didn't go down on the first tackle, and he was more elusive as a running back versus Johnny Richardson, because Johnny Richardson is more of a straight line speed guy, but I didn't see the vision out of Johnny Richardson that I saw of someone like Juice. But that's very interesting point. What do you guys think?
Well, I definitely agree with you that last point. I mean, Juice was just he was running through people at times, right? And if I'm thinking about Johnny Richardson, who is phenomenal, I don't see, like, my mental doesn't see him trucking someone. I mean, juking them, getting past them with speed. But no, oh man, I even said it in the chat, like, I wish we had that type of player, like a 4 or 5 year starter. Well, let's say starter-ish. I don't know what to call it, because Gus didn't use him right. And there's other people Gus didn't use right, but that is in the past.
It's not that Gus didn't use him. His body type just didn't fit his offense at all, right? So what we were waiting for, I mean, when we saw Gus's offenses early on, what did you see a lot of? You saw a lot of jet sweeps. Mm-hmm. You saw a lot of swing passes. And that was pulled out of his offense, which is, I'm not mad at that at all. But we didn't have any way really to stretch the field. So one of the best ways to be able to do that is if you get somebody like Johnny Richardson, get him into the flat in open space, especially against his zone, dump him the ball and let him go. But we didn't have anything set up for that. Scottfrost, on the other hand, though, his offense, if we remember his old one, and this is not, his offense will be different, folks. Yes. It will not be the 2017 offense. I hate to tell you that. It's just not going to happen.
There might be,
it will have shades of it. That's where I was going with that, right? Yeah. So you will definitely see some of that. When he was recruiting offensive linemen recently for transfers, one of the things that the offensive lineman that he was recruiting said was that he wants to recruit offensive linemen that can get to the second level and move the line of scrimmage from where it is to the second level, versus what Gus wanted to do, which was a lot more power offense. You stay in your hole, you move bodies, you create holes, right? So I think that Frost is still going to take some of those core elements and bring them into this offense. And I think this is indicative of the fact that he wants to bring a speed guy back in, not necessarily out of the running game, but someone who's going to run those sweeps, someone who's going to be able to dump the ball in the flat and let him go. He's going to want to create, by his own admission and how he's recruiting these guys, if you guys remember, we had the George O'Leary offensive linemen, which were big, burly, 300-pound plus guys. And then when Frost first came in, his offensive linemen were tall and lanky. And everybody was like, we know why he's trying to do that. I don't think we'll revert back to that. I think now that he's at the Power 5 level, he's going to be looking for guys that have some size to them, but also have the quick feet and the ability to get to that second level.
Yeah, athletic, I think, is the word that we're looking for there. I think that you're right. I mean, he's going to be looking for those athletic offensive linemen that can help not only come around the end, but get into the second level and create that block for our speed guys that are trying to get in space. But yeah, any guy like this that reminds you of those super quick, kind of slash players that that worked so well during the Frost era here. Certainly trying to get those guys, those speedy guys in space and seeing what they could do is going to be an interesting, thing moving forward to look out for. I hope this is one of those guys that can kind of bring that excitement from his freshman year on.
And the swag, right? So we need to bring the Miami High School football / UCF 2017 era swag back.
And you're right. And you're right about Chaminade-Madonna. I mean, that's one of those schools down there in South Florida that is just known for top level football. I mean, it's right. It's not quite at the St. Thomas Aquinas level historically, but it is very much in that same vein of being a football powerhouse. So you're playing games in South Florida for Chaminade-Madonna. You're playing against really, really good teams in front of huge crowds. So that's something that the moment's not going to be too big for him, and he can kind of bring that swagger down here, back down here from Charlotte to the Florida area and see what he can do.
Yeah, seeing a lot of those swagger guys if you actually go back and watch the interviews, the guys like Brandon Hellwig, they'll go out when these guys come in and they'll be the only ones who get these interviews. He'll interview them, and a lot of them are showing that same kind of swag atmosphere. And that was one of the things Trey, and I wish he was on the show this week, was missing. Like Trey identified that it was missing. That was a big difference between those teams and these teams. UCF also landed its first high school commitment of the new Scottfrost era, which is 3-star linebacker Michael McClinton from Ocoee High School, 6 foot 225. Depending on which one you look at, whether it's 247 or Rivals or anything else, he can be looked at as a 3-star or a 4-star. But it's interesting that we're already talking about 2026 recruits to a new high school class, right? So, go ahead.
I just wanted to say I'm excited about this commitment. He's an undersized guy, but I happen to know his head coach a little bit. I'm acquaintances with him. Buck Gurley, who played many years in the NFL, is the head coach at Ocoee High School, and his son played on the older baseball team that my son plays for, the same organization. So I've gotten to know the Gurleys pretty well, and he speaks very highly of Mike McClinton. The interesting thing about this kid is that he, as a sophomore last season, and I know this because I know a little bit about 2026, QB rushers in the Central Florida area. Let's put it that way. But he really kind of burst.
Is there a certain familial connection that
I happen to follow defensive ends pretty well, or outside linebackers pretty well in the Central Florida area.
Interesting.
And so, but this particular kid out of Ocoee High School, Mike McClinton, last year at his sophomore season, he really jumped off the page. He had, and this is like Madden numbers, so you're going to think I'm lying here, but last year he had 202 total tackles in 10 football games. He had 45 tackles for loss, and he had 31 sacks. And I'm not; those are actual stats of Mike McClinton here in Central Florida. He had 31 sacks as a sophomore.
And the competition he was playing against was not inferior competition.
It wasn't cupcakes. They ran. According to who you ask, I guess they run a certain type of scheme where he always seems to be in the right spot. But 31 sacks is 31 sacks. I don't care any way you look at it.
At the linebacker position.
Yes, and they kind of play him. They kind of play him as an edge rusher and kind of outside linebacker that's rushing the quarterback. Now this season, so he followed up that. So he's not surprising anybody anymore, right? Like, and this season he followed that up with 219 total tackles. So more tackles, and they 46 tackles for loss. So one more tackle for loss, and he had 19 sacks, which is still amazing.
I can't.
Sacks.
That's a horrible diminishing returns on production. He's going to go nowhere. Now, was he playing Audubon Park K through 8? I mean,
it's just wild to see. The numbers are eye popping, and so when you look at him, I think he's a 3-star because
his height,
he's 200. Yeah, he's 6 foot, 225 pounds. But he's the type of kid that is, obviously, based on the stats and just some of the short amount of game film that I have seen on him, he's somebody that is just kind of relentless when it comes to rushing the quarterback and getting after the ball, and somebody that's going to probably, I know from people who personally know him that he's going to bring, he's a commitment right now. I imagine that'll stick, and he's somebody that will bring
from Central
very
Florida.
high motor. Yeah, a very high motor to the UCF defense, and we'll see what he can do.
The other thing that has kind of come out through through recruiting has been that it does appear that we're going to be going with a 3-4 defense, as we figured we would. So when you're talking about a hybrid linebacker / defensive end edge rusher kind of guy, he fits right in with that scheme, right?
Certainly.
Because that's the skill set that you want, because with a 3-4, you're going to be bringing one of those linebackers down to either edge contain or bring him down to overload or whatever, right? So that's the kind of guy that you want. He's got, I watched some of his huddle tape. One of the things he's got as a former linebacker myself, I was a middle linebacker. You've got guys that are that have either A, have the instincts, and B, can have a nose for the football. And I know that's a weird, just kind of like anomalous kind of thing of saying that. But there's guys that have the right instincts and they put the work in. Usually when you get those kind of numbers, you've put the work in to get the right number or to understand offenses well enough to do that. Now, the college game is different. You got bigger bodies, a higher quality of athlete. You've got smarter play callers. You've got a lot of different things that are going to play into that. But this is the type of guy that you want. This is the Shaquem Griffin-esque type of guy. This is the Terrence Plummer kind of prototypical guy. If he truly is 6 foot 220, which by Trey's math is 5'11", 210, but in high school, right? In high school, that's a solid weight room guy. He's been putting in the effort. He plays like he knows what he's doing from a football perspective. Oh, and by the way, he also has a relationship with a certain other teammate who just came back to the UCF Knights from Macoy High School as well. So, there's a lot there to be excited about. Yes, he's a 3-star. Yes, he's a little bit undersized for our level and what we've been used to recruiting, but he's got speed, he's got knowledge, he's got vision, and he's got strength. And as a high schooler, if you're 210 to 220 pounds as a linebacker on that frame, I can tell you he works his off in the weight room and will be the kind of guy that Zach Duvall really wants to see.
Yeah, and just so everybody does understand, I mean, we may not know exactly if he's 6 foot 225, but I can tell you with absolute certainty that UCF or any school that is offering any high school athlete or any athlete there is, when they are seeing them, the first thing that you do, if you're going to a UCF football game as a recruit of UCF, as a guest of UCF, you're going to walk in, you're going to meet the coaches and everything, and they're going to take your measurables right away. I mean, they know exactly how tall he is. They know exactly how long his arms are, how big his hands are, how much he weighs. Everything about this kid from a measurable perspective, they know. And so they wouldn't have offered him if they didn't confirm those numbers.
All right.
In general.
So we're gonna put that high school thing to the test that Trey always mentions. That's certain somebody that's in your family who's a highly rated recruit. Mm-hmm. Do they fib on his measurables, or is what he says on his recruiting profile?
I don't know. I don't know exactly what it says on his on like maybe a Max Preps or something like that, or Rivals or whatever. But I know that he's a pretty legit whatever. I mean, I don't personally know his measurables off the top of my head, but I know that the now 49th offer that he got today, they all know his measurables. That's for sure.
Yeah, so he's listed as 6'3", 230. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right. I would actually imagine that needs to be upgraded. I think he probably is about 6'4" now, but he's still in that 230, 235 range, I imagine. But he's getting bigger every day. So Jake Krell is who we're talking about here, and for those who don't know, that's my nephew. So
composite 4-star, borderline 5-star, number 54 nationally. Heck of a player at an edge rusher position. It was fun to kind of watch him grow up through Ben. But at the same time, I'm kind of mad that he's not really seriously considering UCF at all, unfortunately.
Never know, I guess. So you never say never in the crazy world of recruiting.
Can't you like spank him or something, or just be like, hey, dude, you're going to UCF? I mean, what's going on there?
He was first. I'll say I always remind him all the time. We probably should change subjects after this, but I always remind him all the time because he received his first D1 offer when he was going into his freshman year of high school, and it was from UCF. And so I always remind him, you'll never forget your first. Never forget your first.
and well, I don't want to go too far down that, not really going to Jake, but I feel like Scottfrost, this is going to be interesting in this new era of name, image, and likeness, and going to Scottfrost, right? Let's see if that swagger comes back. Let's see if the development works. Let's see if more people get to the NFL from the recruits and the methodologies he's brought in, because even those 2 short years, that was a lot of that going on. Yeah. And unless something ridiculous happens, he's not leaving in 2 years. So I do wonder how, if the money is right, and that's a whole nother story, but let's just say the money is right, will Scottfrost be able to bring in someone of his caliber or that type of caliber when you can get the same money and go to any other place in the country?
Dude, it's going to be a while before we can compete that kind of money. Even with us going up in the Big 12, we're talking a lot of money here for individual players.
DN, well, I can't imagine.
Yes.
Oh yeah. No, I don't think a DN's making more than 300 out of high school.
Josh.
It's happening.
It's happening plus.
Yeah, but seriously though, I think. I agree with you to a point of that we are going to get the better and better recruit. We're going to get the better and better transfer player. I mean, we had to go heavy on transfer portal, obviously, this first year. I expect us to continue to build up our high school recruiting under Scottfrost, and as we continue to grow our I hate even calling it NIL anymore. It's pay for play. Grow up our pay for play, aspect of our game, and I expect that, because it did seem like, and this isn't my necessarily. I'm not the first person to say that, but it did seem like, especially over the last couple of seasons of Gus Malzahn's tenure, it just felt like it was I don't want to call it lazy, but it just felt like he was always trying to get like the kid from the SEC or some, like if you had any sniff of some sort of big name school on your resume, then I want to get that kid, and they didn't always work out. I just feel like Scottfrost is going to be better at understanding what he wants to do and finding the right kids that'll buy into that system, versus always trying to fit the square peg into the round hole. I think.
See, and I think the opposite. I think Gus Malzahn did a good job from a recruiting perspective and getting the kids that, because remember, Gus Malzahn's offense was that SEC style offense and defense, that hard nosed George O'Leary style, for a matter of fact, type of offense, right? Which was run 3 yards in a cloud of dust and then open it up over the top, right? That was his offense. Defensively, I think the where Gus Malzahn had problems was he had a constant rotating coaching roster. Number one, he kept too many of his people that he brought in close. And it's interesting to me that Scottfrost actually purposefully went out there, because one of the things we talked about when Scottfrost was announced as the hire was we hope that he goes outside of his coaching tree for that. And he has purposefully done that. He's brought some bigger names in the game to the table, right? So I think that was a problem. And then he was constantly playing catch up because he had all these big ambitions and he expected to win. I mean, Gus Malzahn, newsflash, guys, if you don't know this, he put his own money into the NIL pot for this year to get who we wanted to get to be able to compete at the level we did. So he did a lot of good things. He was a good high school recruiter, but because we were going down for a lot of reasons, right? I think coaching turnover, the coaching turnover,
I know.
And some of the other things. I think that's where that was a problem. And I do think from a high school recruiting perspective, because of that, he never kept around recruits long enough because of a lot of the changes that have happened in NIL and the transfer portal and all of that stuff. And he never got to play any of those guys that he brought in. So, I do think Scottfrost is going to take a different tact to that. He said he's going to build through high school. He has brought in coaches that are outside of his sphere of influence. So he's got guys that are tenured, that know what they're doing, have had success at other programs in their respective areas. Some of them that went above that, and he's brought them back to where they had success because they didn't have success at a higher level, but they were really good, whether we're talking about linebackers, coaches, whether we're talking about anything like that. So I do think that he will build through the high school ranks. He's brought in a lot of the former players, and in fact, Dimitri Brim might be coming back. A certain Jordan Johnson might be coming back. He's got Mackenzie Milton that's there. So all of those guys, he's got, as bad as it was for him once he left for Nebraska, he's still got cachet in the Central Florida and the Florida area because of those teams with high school coaches. They remember him. He's got some of his kids that are now high school coaches at bigger programs. We've got guys like, a certain quarterback at Coco, Ryan Schneider, who finally came back into the fold. We've got them trying to bring those guys back into the fold. So I think that we will continue to recruit high school. And as good as Gus Malzahn was, I think the coaching staff and everything and the turnover led to those high school players not playing. I do think Scottfrost, and we heard it from Trey, what was it, a couple of weeks ago, he will play the best player. It doesn't matter if you're a high school guy or not. I don't think Coach Malzahn did that. So go ahead.
I was just you mentioned Mackenzie Milton. I mean, you can just see him on Twitter. He's out there recruiting. He's like hot on the trail. I mean, he's been out there, certainly offering kids. He's been traveling around the country. I saw that he offered a Texas QB today that was that was a state champion in Texas. So he's been out there recruiting. I mean, all of our coaches, I'm sure, have been out there, on fire recruiting. It just seems like Mackenzie Milton is really jumping into his role, really, really well, and taking to it really well. And so I think Mackenzie Milton has a ton of respect in all of, even with this generation of high school juniors, seniors. I think they still know that name from not that long ago, especially in the Central Florida area. And even beyond that, I believe, because he was such a national story.
Well, and in addition to that, to add on to your point, Ben, like, he comes from the Josh Heupel tree. People talk about how close he was with Scottfrost, but he was really close with Josh Heupel.
Yeah.
And so you've got Josh Heupel. Well, the one thing you can say about that guy, as bad as he put us in a recruiting position, is he knew his QBs, right? Mm-hmm. So if he learned how to pick QBs from Josh Heupel, that's a positive. He's seen how they do it at Tennessee. He's seen how they do it at Florida State. And each of those schools have their own ties within the high school ranks. So he's had those connections with those people. Plus he's got the UCF related type of relationships too. So again, these are guys that get it. They get the energy. They've had success with Scottfrost. They can speak to that success and what made them successful and how Scottfrost can make them successful. And these are the guys, they're Scottfrost system ambassadors that he's got out there with cachet, because all of them were on an undefeated team.
I think that's such a powerful point. That point alone is just such a powerful one when they're out there talking with recruits, especially high school recruits, is that they can really sell the vision because they lived it. They're not, hey, I talked with Scott about that. I coached Frost about this last week. No. They were in it. They were in the trenches with him as their leader. And so they can sell that vision to new recruits. And I couldn't agree more. That's such a huge point as to the reason why he's bringing these guys in, and it'll help with recruiting by leaps and bounds, and help with probably the most important thing, the thing that we've probably been missing the most over the last couple of years, is a culture that is truly locked in.
Yeah. And I will say, this is not a long time ago, as all of you well know. They could go into a high school recruit and say, when you were just in middle school, right? Like, not that long ago, this is what we're doing on the field. Go check out the highlights. So there's pieces of that too. It's not only have we done it, we've done it in, easily your lifetime. This isn't Schnellenberger or something coming back, right? Or like Nick Saban coming back in 10 years. This is recency bias.
But not only that, Josh, but they've done it from the AAC.
That's
right?
True.
we did it with a group of people, this system and this coaching and this thing. We went undefeated and were nationally ranked 2 years in a row. People forget that. We went undefeated in the regular season 2 years in a row. We lost that LSU game by creating the great Joe Burrow of my Cincinnati Bengals fame. But, I hated that guy until he became a Bengal and started winning. I hated him, right? So it's great for me. But so Mackenzie Milton helped me win again too. But at the end of the day, the point is they can say, hey, we did this out of the AAC. Now we've got guys and we've got the program and we've got the money to do this from the Big 12. So if you think we did it in the AAC, wait till you see what we do in the Big 12. And I think that is a huge selling point, because not only were they great, not only did they show the system could work, not only could they say, hey, the coaching could work, but we did it in the American Athletic Conference, and screw you, Bama, for not playing us. All right. That being said, UCF is now up to 28 overall transfers. We had a lot of turnover this year, so 28 total transfers. So that's, I think, in this case, a good thing. We kept a lot of the core players that we wanted to keep. The offensive line had some turnovers, but that's going to work in our favor because, again, the scheme that we're playing is not an SEC-style scheme. We're not playing between the tackles, right? Scottfrost will run between the tackles, but he will also run you side to side to try to wear your defense out. Will he play as many plays? Probably not. He's not going to run that up tempo. He said that all along. He's learned a lot, so you'll see elements of it. But I do still think he's going to stretch the defense. UCF's transfer class is currently ranked number 5 by rivals. So we're pulling in Colorado. I don't know if you remember, their transfer class was like crazy. They had 40-some transfers. We're not quite there yet, but we do have a lot of roster room, and we're having some success in the high school ranks. So that's exciting. Do you guys, anything else you guys want to say about that before we move on, I guess, back to Houston?
I mean, I'm excited to see some glimpses of it once spring ball comes around. But, he's doing what he should be doing as far as selling the vision of what he's going to bring to UCF and what his staff is going to bring to UCF over the next couple of years. And hopefully we can make some noise in his first year and kind of set a foundation for the future.
Josh, anything to add to that?
No, nothing to add. I agree with Ben. I'm waiting till. Do we have a date for that? Sometime in April, but I'm about to check that out
For the spring game.
I just can't wait to see it. Yeah. Is that already out? I think it is. The date on
Well,
that. But I can't wait to see.
I mean, here's the thing. I don't know if you guys remember, but the spring game when Scottfrost was here the first time was like the most heavily attended spring game, which was kind of ironic. Because George O'Leary, what did he used to say all the time? If we have enough people at the spring game, I'll tell you my super secret at the beginning of it. So it kind of became the running joke.
Yes.
I honestly don't think we'll see that again. I think there's a level of hype within the donors. I don't think we'll see that again because we've seen him here and because of the Nebraska experience. But I do think no matter what we would do, our numbers will be better than FSU's because they're not having a spring game this year.
Are they really not?
Gus has canceled the spring game.
Wow, I didn't realize that. That's crazy.
No, I think they have some construction or something.
All right.
They do. They're replacing some of the bleacher sections. Oh, by the way, FSU has bleachers just like we do. Just a reminder.
Yeah.
All right.
They just found a good way to put brick buildings for the campus students to use. Actually, I will say, so did Arizona. I walked by the stadium when I went to the Arizona game, and there are 2 residential halls in between and underneath the football stadium.
Well,
so
but here's the difference. The state of Florida, after that was done, decided to change the rules, right? So yeah. So we can't use money for classrooms for our football stadium anymore like FSU did. So that being said, let's go ahead and pivot. Wow. All right. Ben's was way more excitable than yours was, Josh.
Listen, this is what when you have 2 vocal tones, you kind of get some type of choral part. I knew he was going to be excited, so I had to go low.
Go low. All right, let's talk about Houston. 69-68 heartbreaker. Oh, we came out on fire. One thing I will say is that one thing that we've been complaining about this entire season about the UCF basketball team has been slow starts in the first 8 minutes of the basketball game. UCF did not do that in this game versus Houston. Houston, again, at the time was ranked number 10, is now ranked higher. They're our bugaboo. They are literally our bugaboo. They find ways to win. We've had close games with them consistently. I'm sure Houston says, hey, UCF is our bugaboo because nobody plays us as close as UCF does every single year. So even Trae Young days, we played them tight. You know what I mean? So it's Kelvin Sampson has built a program that's successful, but they're successful because they do the fundamentals really well, even though they're undersized, and they do them consistently. And no matter how far they get down, they do their thing and they win because of it. And a big part of that is defense. That's what Johnny Dawkins promised us. And by and large, this season, we've had a fairly good defense. We've kept most teams under 60 points, which if we keep them under 60 points, except for Iowa State, we typically win basketball games, right? This one was a squeaker. It came down to the last few minutes of the game. One of the things we've done really, really well this year that we haven't done in the past is shoot free throws. Not only have we generated free throws, we're one of the top teams in the country for doing that, but we've successfully shot them around 75% of the time. We're making our free throws. We did not do that down the stretch, missing 5 of 6 free throws late in the game. And that's how we've been winning. You know, people have been talking about DJ kind of taking over and all that stuff in the end of games. Guys, that's by design. We get to the foul line, we leverage that strength, and because of that, we win games. We slow it down, and we win the last 2 to 3 minutes of the games. We've been really, really good at that. We didn't get it done at the charity stripe in this game. That's the only reason we didn't come away with a dub, and it would have been nice to have another quad 1 dub. Nice, not necessary. And I'm going to say that. Nice, but not necessary to create some breathing room for us. The challenge is after tonight's game against Iowa State, that was not so close.
Yeah.
You know, there's 2 different ways to look about this because we're all thinking about looking forward to the tournament, right? And one of the things that they're going to be looking at is quad 1 wins, what your opponents do versus other quad 1 teams. And they're going to be looking at some other metrics. And then there's the net. The net that we mentioned earlier that Josh had mentioned in that the sense that we wanted to get this as close as possible with Iowa State for the net. The net after Kansas was completely blown out of the water. So the net is actually a secondary measure compared to the other measures that they look at, which is based on quad 1 wins. And we actually are really, really well positioned when it comes through quad 1 wins. This game, this first 7, I think it was 5 out of the 7 were quad 1 games.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
5 out
of the 7. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, was it 6? No, it was Colorado and what was the other one that was not a quad 1? It might have
was
well, no.
No, I think it was 6 of the 7 were quad.
Was
1.
ASU a quad 1?
Yeah,
I think so. It was on the road.
1. Yeah, that was another quad 1 win. Colorado was the only one. It was 6 of the 7. 6 of the 7 were quad 1 games.
And to your point, Josh, road games may be considered quad 1 games, even if it's not a quad 1 team per se, right?
So, well, no. So the way it works is a true road game. Through what the top 75 in the net is a quad 1 game. A home game versus the top, I think, 25 in the net is a quad 1 game. So like that's how it works. It's just a sliding scale based on home, neutral, and away. So it's the whole quads is associated with the net rankings very closely. It's just that's how it works as far as like which games are considered a quad 1, quad 2, quad 3, quad 4 games. So it's your 1 through 30 in the net at home, 1 through 50 on a neutral site, or 1 through 75 on a true road game is considered a quad 1 game. And 6 of the first 7 that we had in conference were quad 1 games, which shows you how as we talked about, how front loaded this schedule is in the Big 12. There are no easy wins in the Big 12, but our schedule in particular is very front loaded. So coming out of it with 3 of those quad 1 games as wins, or 2 of those 3 wins were quad 1 wins, is big for us.
And it would have been nice to have that Houston win, but
it would have been humongous. I mean, we have 4 and 10, I should say, in quad 1 games last year. And we were kind of in the bubble up until about mid-February, and then we kind of tailed off with some of the losses late. But this year we're even in better position. We're 3-5 in quad 1 after the Iowa State loss, but the difference in my opinion, between last year and this year is that we are undefeated in those 3 and 4, a quad 3 and 4 games. And so that helps us. We don't have a bad loss per se. But we do need more of these top tier quad 1 wins in order to establish more of a resume. We can't only rest on 3 of them. That's for sure. We've got to get more, and we've got more opportunities coming up, and that's a good thing. But you're right, Roger. I mean, that Houston game, we definitely had every opportunity to win that down the stretch. You mentioned we missed those free throws. The interesting thing about the free throws for me that game was that we only shot 17 of them. As a team, we're in free throw attempts, we're 37th in the country at 23.5 free throw attempts a game. We only shot 17 that game. Darius Johnson, as you mentioned, who has been so good from the line, he actually was oddly not great in the first half tonight against Iowa State, but he's been so good from the line. He didn't even shoot a single free throw in that game. And I don't really remember that.
And that's really his role.
Yeah, it was just odd that he didn't shoot a single free throw in that game. And so I think that was a little bit of an anomaly that was strange. I mean, Keyshawn Hall, unfortunately, after dropping 40 points at Arizona State, he did not have a very good game, especially in the second half. I'll give him a lot of credit, even though he missed the 2 free throws on the possession before that, had a great steal and a really tough spinning layup to give us the lead by 1, down the stretch there with about 30 seconds left, or maybe actually, excuse me, it was about 10 seconds left. But I mean, it's really unfortunate. Juwan Roberts was special in that game in the post. He's a veteran player. He's played 165 collegiate basketball games, going up against a kid that should be still playing high school basketball. I thought Chian played well overall. He had 18 points. He really held his own. But in the end, in the second half, the last 10 minutes of the game, Juwan Roberts just took over for Houston. And with 3.5 seconds left, we just had a slight defensive error that, well, 2 of them, I guess. One, that we even let him catch the ball in the post, which is crazy. Like that's a defensive error in and of itself. And on top of that, Chiam kind of tried to go for the steal on the catch when really if he just would have walled up, maybe it would have been a lot better. Keyshawn Hall kind of fades back a little bit. It was a little bit late on coming for the help there. And you got to give Juwan Roberts credit in that last moment. I mean, he just figured out a way, even through a double team, to kind of get it around those guys as opposed to trying to go up over them. And he made that great left-handed layup, and they took the lead. It was a wild finish and to a crazy second half of basketball that I would put up against. Objectively, if you didn't have a college basketball team that you were rooting for, and you just happened to tune in the second half on Saturday afternoon, you were witness to like some of the best, most exciting college basketball there is. I mean, I think there was 10 lead changes in the second half. There was 4 different occasions where the game was tied, all in the second half alone. And it's a shame because it was that way, because they started the second half on like about a 15-2 run. I mean, they kind of closed that gap very quickly.
They've always been a second half team, though.
Yeah, I mean, we knew they were going to come out firing, but also, yes, they brought the game close. But I'll give us credit. Again, no moral victories at all. But by the same token, we did not back down when they went on their run. We went at them blow for blow, and at the end of the game, we just came up 1 point short, 1 bucket short, 1 defensive assignment short. And it's a shame that it turned out that way, because it would have been just a really propelling win for this season. It would have been the ultimate resume builder of the games that we have won this season. That would have been by far the biggest, and it would have reminded me a lot of the 2019 season, because you talked about how Houston probably views us as a bit of a bugaboo, or a bit of that team that's rough. But I mean, that season, anybody who's kind of paid attention to UCF basketball over the last decade, I mean, we went into their house on it was college game day before they hadn't lost in over a season and a half or 2 seasons at home. And we won that game. And that basically was what, along with the Cincinnati win at the end of the year, like solidified us as our first at-large bid in school history. So Houston has definitely always been one of those teams for us. And it would have been great to have another story turn out our way on Saturday. It just wasn't meant to be at the end.
So to tell you how close this was, if we shot our percentage on free throws, even though we only got 17 attempts at this, right? Our normal percentage, we would have had 2 more points on the board, and that would have been enough for the win. That's how close this was. We shot 64.7% in this game. We normally shoot between 72 and 75%, closer to 75%. At 75%, that's 2 more points. And that's the difference in this game. So at the end of the day, great game. It really didn't hurt us nationally.
Man, it would have helped us.
But it would have helped us a heck of a lot more if we would have had another quad 1 win.
Whoa, it would have helped us.
And by the way, I would have loved it because Kelvin Sampson drives me nuts. The fact that he strips, and I bring this up every time we play against Houston, the fact that he strips on the court, like yelling at the refs pretty much the entire game. Good on him for UH's basketball program. Bad because it drives me absolutely insane that he does it, right? It reminds me of what was the guy's name? Tom Herman or from
Marshall.
Yeah, and who was on the site like it's too hot in here. I've got a heart attack and faked a heart attack. That's what it reminds me of every time he's on the court.
Yeah, Tom Herman's a football coach, but I know who you're talking about.
That was Texas's coach.
Yeah,
UH's coach.
At one
he was
point,
UH's football coach too. At one point too.
Yeah, that was also in the garage. I don't know if that was Ben's time, but that definitely, he was acting like he was going to have a heart attack.
It was after Ben's time because it was AJ Ramsa. That was AJ Ramsa days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Marcus Gordon, AJ Ramsa days.
Remember, Ben is almost as old as we are. You are still the oldest, Josh, but Ben is close. So, all right. That being said, look, this was a great game. I would have liked to see Kelvin Sampson lose. I would have liked to see us get another quad 1 game, especially now that we went to Iowa State and kind of laid an egg. Well, we didn't lay an egg. I won't say that we laid an egg. I think that for whatever reason, we talked about this earlier on in the show, Johnny Dawkins had to go to lineups that did not fare well and were not experienced enough. However, it was great for the growth of the players that were there because a lot of guys that don't see first team minutes are starting to see those minutes. Guys like Mikey Williams, Dior, who was a little lost on some of that stuff, etc. Ben, it looks like you were going to say something.
Well, it's just I just been staring at some of the stats here for our team and for our players, and it's very easy to think that this team is like we've seen over the past however many years of Johnny Dawkins basketball that we do as you've mentioned a few times we hold opponents to 60 points or less or whatever they may be, low 60s on average. But the unfortunate reality actually is that we're not as statistically as good a defensive team as we have been in previous years. We actually give up 77 points a game, which is much more than any other year in Johnny Dawkins' tenure. Now we have had a couple of 100-point games this year, 98 or 99, whatever it was with Kansas, so 3 of them that were close to that. And so it's the difference this season is that I think we have more scorers than we ever have in the past, more guys that can do, take over a game from an offensive standpoint. And then I think defensively, we do give up more points than we have in the past, but we have athleticism. We've got an elite, rim protector in Chiam as long as he can stay out of foul trouble. And so we do some good things defensively. We have a lot of we create a lot of steals and turnovers. We create a lot of block shots. But
we saw a lot of youth defensively this game, right? Because we didn't see our starters for a lot of this game. So
I'll agree with that. I'm just saying that I think overall, like we're not as smothering defensively. We're like getting it done in different ways this season. It's like kind of like what we're not used to. A little bit more free flowing on offense than what we've seen in the past. So that's the good thing. And more game changers on the offensive end. So that's a good thing. We've got athleticism on the defensive end. I think we do need to continue to get better on defense, though, because we do have a tendency to allow the other team to go on a run a little bit, and it has hurt us in certain games. And the Houston game was an example of that, I guess. I mean, give them all the credit in the world, but by the same token, it's like we need to show a little bit more from a defensive standpoint.
Well, and here's the thing, like Iowa State and Kansas, you mentioned both of them. They're both known for defense. They're actually one of the top defenses in the entire country, and we still managed to score 80 points on Iowa State. So
offensively, we're in good shape.
We're good. We're at a point where, in the past, defensively, if we scored 80 points a game, we won every game.
Yeah.
And I do think it's, again, from a rotation perspective, we see a drop off because the guys just haven't played. They haven't had that many minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Benny Williams, the one thing that kind of bothered me was Benny Williams. He's meant to be the muscle, and he does that well. I'd like to see some more fundamental defense out of him, given his. I
don't really see him as much of a muscle. He seems like a guy that likes to stay on the outside. Like he's not like I don't know. He's not.
He's
like
the guy scrapping for rebounds, though. Like,
I mean, he gets his rebounds, I guess. I mean, he didn't tonight. He had 0 rebounds in 10 minutes. But I mean, But you're right about tonight. Tonight was a little bit of an anomaly. I mean, Mikey Williams played, I believe, a season high 16 minutes. J.J. Taylor played 21 minutes. We got guys like Darius Johnson only playing 23 minutes, which is well below his season average. Dior Johnson, I think I already said that, 10 minutes. So we had a lot of bench contribution, a lot of guys playing heavy minutes, in particular J.J. Taylor, which I actually thought played pretty well tonight, especially on the defensive end.
He's still a little crazy. Like
he's out of control. He gets out of control on the offensive end. He had that steal and layup in the second half. That was just great. I mean, he made the layup, but in real time, I'm like screaming at my screen. My whole family is, like, my wife included, like screaming at the screen that he got fouled. And then I saw the replay, and now he was just falling over because he was a little out of control on that spin move. It just looked like from the angle that we saw on TV that he was just getting hacked. But J.J. Taylor's got to kind of get a little bit more under control, especially on offense. But he does provide some good things for us. But hopefully some of these minutes that they got tonight will bode well for those guys. But we need to see a little bit more. It's just I think the biggest thing, and to your point about Benny Williams, I think it's just a broader point that I guess you pronounce his last name Yasus. Everyone was saying Josias in the beginning of the season, and now every commentator is saying Yasus, but Rokas Yasus, along with Benny Williams. The unfortunate thing about this team this season is that we just have no depth behind our freshman, phenom in there in the middle in Chiam. It's just and Rokas are just not providing that depth.
He's getting better. Like, he drives me nuts with some of the stuff that he does. Like, he swipes at way too many balls, instead of going straight up.
Right.
But at the same time, I mean, this kid is 17 years old. I mean, if we get to hold on to him, he's going to provide a lot of fun UCF basketball and great plays.
He's so special. I agree so much. I mean, he's just something different. And I agree with you, Roger. Like, what I've been impressed with over the last few games from him is that a lot of freshmen, especially a lot of freshman big men, we saw it in Taco Fall. When it comes around mid-January, towards late January, they hit that wall a little bit. We even saw it with Taylor Hendricks a few years ago.
Ben, did you hit that wall?
I didn't. When you're sitting on the end of the bench, you don't really hit the wall that hard. But the freshmen, the freshmen that we've seen over the last few years, especially, I mean, we saw it, like I said, with Taylor Hendricks about mid to late January. He took about a week and a half or so. He struggled a little bit because he was just trying to get his wind back. And I haven't seen that out of Mustafa Chiam. And I think that is a testament to his not only athleticism, but his work ethic and how he prepares for these games during the season. Because it's not easy. We ask a lot of that kid. And I think for the most part, he's delivered another pretty good game tonight, 9 points, 9 rebounds. He was asked to do a lot tonight, and I thought he delivered for the most part. And then you look at his game against Houston, he was a difference maker against Houston.
Well, I think the big thing for him, and I think he was able to leverage his height, right? We had a height advantage against Houston because they play a lot of small ball.
That's
but
right.
I think that what's going to be his next step, right? What's really going to make him a difference maker is when he learns to push people out of the post. He's good offensively, but when he learns his role in that perspective, when he's the guy, when we're doing defense that collapses in right towards that center, that was what Taco Fall was so good at. He was a great rim protector, right? And so I think he will grow into his body. One of the big things that people forget is there's a lot of weight training that's done in the front end of the season, and there's not as much heavy lift training that's done during the season. So he will have you physically can't do it, right? So this offseason, what I'm expecting out of him is to gain some muscle mass, right, and then maintain that, and then learn more about his post game when it comes to rebounding, when it comes to defensively, because he was out of position a lot tonight. Jefferson really had his way with him when it came to having him in position to be able to grab those rebounds. He bodied him. And like you said, this is a guy who's played 165 games. He knows how to do that versus a freshman who has not played that, especially at the Big 12 level. So I see a lot of that happening, but it's a bright spot. And then the other thing is the rest of the team that we saw get a lot of minutes, they have not played a lot. And so now getting them in there, they'll definitely learn.
Was it just me, or did it feel like Dior Johnson played more than 10 minutes tonight? It felt like he was on the floor a lot tonight. I don't know.
Well, I think that's because you looked at him and you looked at him sometimes and said, "Bro, are you trying to be a point guard right now?" I mean, that was the big thing.
He was a little wild tonight. I mean, and he had 3 turnovers, but it felt like more than that.
Lazy
they were
passing.
tiny. Yeah, it was strange, but
you can't do that stuff to most of the teams in this conference. You can get away with it with some, but not Houston, not Iowa State, not like maybe half of this conference. You have to be crisp. You have to be sharp all the time. Like this team with 40 minutes being on point can beat every single team. Yeah, we still haven't seen it yet. We've seen it. We've gotten close, but we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. With all that being said, I think we've beaten hoops to death for this episode thus far. So let's go ahead and pivot yet again.
Pivot.
All right. It's time for a little bit of listener love this week. So let's start with some comments that we got. There's Alan LV9RW. Interesting. level 9 RW, maybe. I don't know. He says UConn is a better school than UCF. UConn has the largest TV market in the nation, New York City to Boston. I
lived in New York. UConn was on every so often, and no, come on.
The only thing
No.
UConn has is the SUNY contract, right? So it has the best basketball program in the country, and no one else is close. And it won 2 Big East football championships in 10 years. It would easily be better than Boston College, Syracuse, Rutgers, and Pitt if it was given the same resources. So
I don't disagree with that.
So my response is UConn does not carry that market. The football program has a long way to go after the Big East move. The Big East football championship was not a very good team that lucked into it. It was a 3-loss team, if I remember correctly. But either way, it's not indicative of the current state of the program. UConn cannot afford to compete right now. UConn has a great basketball program again after falling off for a bit. Thank you for the comment.
Yeah, I agree-ish because UConn has the alumni. They could, if they chose to, could focus on things other than basketball, and I think that's the core problem. They're not going to do that. That's just not like if you were thinking UConn again. My New York references for the 80s and the most of the 90s, basketball. I mean, it always was basketball. They put more money into basketball than they would football. And if they did the same thing for football, I do think they would be better than some of those other teams, to be honest. And counterpoint, if other teams put more money into those of that list, they'd probably be a lot better too.
All right, so let me go back to his
basketball this year.
let me go back to his response. So his response, was, have you lived in New York or New England? No, I have not. I have never lived there. I have visited, but I have not been there. In fact, I have been to Connecticut. UConn gets more eyeballs in New York than Rutgers or Syracuse. No one gives a rat's alligator about Rutgers, and Syracuse is a private school 5 hours away. SNY carries UConn sports. Oh, there you go. I didn't even read this part of the comment. I didn't realize he responded. The football team was 9-4 this year. Yes, but against what competition? The playing field is uneven right now. My point is UConn football would do better than BC, Syracuse, Rutgers, or Pitt. If it was given the same money and exposure. So let me respond first before you do, Josh.
Okay.
I don't know about that. And by the way, we just went down to one viewer after the UConn football talk. So I'm just gonna say this. So number one, thank you, whoever you are. Give a shout out in the comments, and I will shout you out on here for staying with us. And thank you, by the way, as well, to Alan for commenting. Right, we absolutely appreciate that. That being said, to me, maybe that's a big maybe. I don't know that about UConn because they haven't done that. They haven't done it in the past, and they haven't done it going forward. They squandered their Big East opportunity. They brought back a head coach, Randy Edsall, who had given them success in the past. Again, my comment is about the current state of UConn football, not what they could do if they had something else. So at the end of the day, I appreciate the support. I agree that nobody watches Rutgers. SUNY. Yes, you have the SUNY, but that doesn't mean that people actually watch the UConn outside of basketball. UConn needed to do work for that basketball program to get back where it is, and it is doing very, very well. But football, you're going to be hard pressed to have a consistent, good, and competitive UConn football program for the same reasons that all of the other folks that you mentioned also struggle to have a competitive football program with those same resources. Josh, as the resident New Yorker, Who's got the best pie? And are there really rats the size of alligators in the sewer? No, just kidding. Why don't you go ahead and respond to Alan's
here's okay, and I will note that this is my lived experience. I tend to agree that UConn, if they were given the funding necessary at a school and donor level, could probably overtake most of those Northeast schools. Honestly, I think that is true. And also it'll never happen. That's the truth. If you're talking about schools that are interested in football and perhaps making football more popular, Rutgers is probably going to be there. And I agree with you. No one cares about Rutgers, barely the people in New Jersey. And this is also so I've driven from Long Island to the UConn game in that frigid ridiculousness where O'Leary wouldn't put heaters on the sides. That was a debacle. I've driven to Syracuse a couple of times. I almost went, I have Syracuse University credits when I was dual enrolled.
Hey, Josh, yeah. my front yard and my backyard looks like Syracuse, New York right now.
Probably does. It probably does. So I've been there, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of homers when it comes to those teams in the New York area. Syracuse does well. Oh, it's like Carmelo Anthony's coming back. UConn, same thing. When I grew up, football, the only one who cared about football, Syracuse was doing okay. Penn State was huge when I was growing up in the 80s and early 90s, and Notre Dame. I know. I think
Tim in Florida chimes in. Thank you, Tim, you longtime listener, viewer / commenter. He says a New York rat will make our Gators look like a petting zoo. A petting zoo.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I was in the city during the holidays, right before New Year's Eve, and it was.
Hold on, Tim in Florida chimes in again. UConn, why are y'all wasting time?
Couldn't agree with you more, Tim. I don't know why we're even spending time on UConn.
I'm with you, Tim. We had to say we had to comment though because Alan took the time, and he watched the show, and which we were very appreciative of.
Thank you.
And obviously, it's important for him. So thank you, Alan. Number one, and I'm not saying that in jest. I mean that we appreciate everyone who watches the show, and like you, Tim, takes the next step in that and interacts with us because we want to give you content that's important to you. And so that's why we are spending a little bit of time on the green cows. So go ahead.
Yeah, I will say that the posit of that idea is sound, and it's sound for anyone else in Massachusetts or anyone else in New Jersey, but then no one's going to put the money into them. It's not as they care about the Giants, the Jets, the Bills, the Eagles, the Patriots. Sorry, Connecticut, you don't have a real team there, but they don't really care about college football the way we do down here, which is why I grew up enjoying watching Notre Dame and Penn State because that's the only people who were around back then on TV. I didn't know anything about football, college football at all.
Let me put it to you this way. UConn basketball is a national brand / blue blood great program, 100%. That is all UConn will ever be known for because guess what? You said they'll beat Rutgers, they'll beat Syracuse, they'll beat BC. Who cares about those teams? So even if you move it up to that level, this is what the AD's thinking. This is what the AD's thinking. Yeah. Other than the jalapeno mac and cheese that UConn is known for, football, unfortunately, and this is, and I'm not saying this is a diss, but the reality of the situation is that nobody cares about football in the Northeast unless it's professional football. Yes. And unfortunately, because of where UConn is, and luckily for UCF, which is what the show is about, we are in Florida, in the Southeast, where everybody cares about football, and specifically college football, more so even than NFL football. So if your measure of the bar is Syracuse, BC, etc., I hate to say this, but they're not in national contention, and they won't be outside of a lucky year here and there anymore in today's college football. And that is the calculus that the UConn administration did, and which is why it threw it back into the Big East and why it's a success, because they are making more money off of Big East basketball than even at only paying $5 million in ticket sales and everything else, because they're more willing. The fan base is more willing to support basketball, and basketball is more important than football to UConn, and that is why it is where it is. All right, I am done with my treatise, Josh.
Oh God, I had a
20 seconds
thing.
to finish up. 20 seconds I'm going to give you to finish up.
Oh no, I was just going to say
from blue.
This is it.
Cows.
This is it. Yeah. Dan Hurley is going to be probably paid more than any football coach almost ever at UConn, and that is all you need to know about what people care about up there.
All right, so let me say this about this. We were calling the Cows Green UConn for football. So that's all you need to know about UConn football. Again, that's not a diss. It's just what the reality of the situation is. Fair. All right. That I do want to give a quick shout out. We did get a ton of new followers, so please follow, like, subscribe, comment, etc. on our YouTube channel. I want to recognize you guys, but you guys have it set to private, so I can't call you out by name. That being said, I still want to call you out nonetheless. Thank you so much for subscribing and following and listening to us ramble about
UConn.
The blue cows is what I was going to say. All right. That being said, Alan is obviously not here, so let's go ahead and pivot again.
Pivot.
All right, pivot. There we go. Thank you, Tim. Entertaining show. Thank you. So I do not miss a show. What is the normal schedule? Okay, let me address that.
Okay.
Typically,
it's a good question, Tim. I appreciate you.
Great.
It's a question we all have.
Thank you for allowing me to address this. We are a Monday night show that has been going at Tuesday nights because of our schedule. So you love the personalities that are Ben Stout. You love the personalities that are Trey Neal. You love the personality that is Josh Lazar. You love Alan Levin, right? Unfortunately, the past few weeks, because of the holidays and sick kids, to be frank, we've had to move the show to Tuesday nights. Our goal is Monday nights for every show, and that's what we will look to achieve. Unfortunately, the last few weeks we've gone to Tuesdays because of a variety of items. Ben is a father and a great father at that, so hats off to Ben. He participates in a lot of different sports. So we try to work around everybody's schedule, because you love the people that are involved and I love the people that are involved, and we want to have those conversations together. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work out. That being said, Monday nights are what we're going to be shooting for. If not, Tuesday nights are where we'll punt to, and I will try to get something out there. I have been putting YouTube shorts out there to let everybody know when we've had to punt, but Monday nights is what we're looking for. That being said, Josh, do you have a sometimes funny fact of the week this week?
Yeah, this time is actually not sobering too. So there is a term that
Josh, you're sober right now?
Well, yes, I am, but
after that game, you're sober.
I mean, I drinking water.
Okay.
So there was a great phrase everyone was using earlier, and it made me do some research. As you know, Dwayne Thomas Jr. played wide receiver at Chaminade-Madonna. And that sounds a lot like something else, but it is Chaminade-Madonna.
All right, got it.
He's not the only wide receiver from there to go to UCF. Not only that, there was one wide receiver from Chaminade-Madonna that made it to the NFL for 7 years.
Dude, you are cracking me up every time you say that.
You what, Chaminade-Madonna?
Yeah, exactly.
This is what you guys sound like. You have to run it back. It sounds like something else, but every time you take it's like Chaminade-Madonna.
No, it's Chaminade-Madonna.
I know Chaminades. I went to school on Long Island, and there was the guy in the middle of Long Island who is the former UCF wide receiver that also played wide receiver at Chaminade-Madonna.
In Miami?
This is so
Was
great.
he? No, yeah, he played for Chaminade-Madonna, and he was a wide receiver, and he was in the NFL for 7 years. Former UCF guy. Played for 5 different teams. That might give you a hint.
Eesh.
Played for 5 different teams in the NFL.
Correct. From Chaminade-Madonna.
Kamar Aiken.
No.
Do you have a guess? We got Kamar Aiken. Do you have a guess over there, Roger?
I want to say it was. I want to say it was someone in the. I can't. Was it Mike Sims Walker?
We got 2 guesses. One of them is right.
So Ben, based on how he just said that, I'm assuming you are correct, sir.
I don't know. Am I?
Yes, you are. Kamar
Oh,
Aiken.
what? No, I thought.
Good
I
job.
tried to recall that he was from South Florida, and I knew that he played in the NFL. Wow, Kamar
Yeah.
Aiken, awesome.
Kamar Aiken is another
probably my
former
first
UCF
one I've
wide
ever gotten
receiver
right.
from Chaminade-Madonna, and he played for
Chaminade-Madonna.
Buffalo. He played for I think New England, Baltimore, Indiana, Indianapolis, and Philadelphia. Yeah. He's made the rounds, but he was in for 7 years, came from over there, and I was like, you know what? As many times as Ben was saying Chaminade-Madonna, and it sounded like that in my head.
Okay,
and maybe
you
to the
guys.
listeners.
Okay, I've just gotta say this. Like we have a chat that goes like during the show, right?
Yeah.
So Nobra goes. You guys are gonna have to spell that out for me so I can spell it in the description tomorrow. LOL. Then Nobra Chaminade-Madonna. Then Josh spells it out,
right.
and then Josh goes Shamala Mong Ding Dong.
It sounds like Shamalama Ding Dong, and to me, and I don't even know
like,
if that's a bad thing to say at this point. But
Ding dong, ding dong. Okay, we're
no,
showing
that's keep their heads ringing.
I know. All right. Okay, so now that we've got that established, Josh, let's bring this craziness home.
Okay.
With the quick update on other UCF sports that Alan does not watch. Do you want to even bring up women's basketball right now?
Not particularly, but I have to once I get to my notes because they are on another screen, unfortunately. But I unfortunately know by heart that they've lost 8 in a row. Is that not good?
Well, that clearly shows that you do watch the games that Alan does not watch. So go ahead with that.
I do some quick updates on them. They had another L to Oklahoma State. I think they're ranked 23rd, 24th at home. We lost 58-72. They have not had a win since December 7th. That's a long time. They're going to get one, I feel. Sometime in the future. I don't know if it's going to be coming up.
Not against Iowa State.
Up against Iowa State. We'll see if they win at the Hilton. And I have to do research if it's that Hilton, but I don't think so. But they kept calling the Hilton tonight on ESPN Plus. They're going to be playing Saturday, January 25th at 5 p.m. Eastern. Now, for teams that Alan does watch.
Hold on. Let me say this about that.
Okay.
About the Hilton when it comes to Iowa State.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if it is that Hilton or not, but the fact that I'm going to the Hilton is freaking hilarious. That you're calling your arena the Hilton.
I agree.
And
the arena is called the Hilton?
Yeah,
yes.
It's the James H. Hilton Coliseum that James H. Hilton put $8.5 million into in 1971, I guess. So yeah,
which at that time was worth like 500 million. All right. That being said, the other thing is, and I want to bring a little levity to the conversation about women's basketball. We have been dealing between sickness and injuries with a ton of players that have not played, and our head coach, in her post-game interview against Cincinnati, which we were winning up until the last second. This team has been decimated. I mean, absolutely decimated by injuries and illness. And I'm talking like of the 11 to 12 players or 11 players, there has been like 7 that have been left on the bench during that time and during that stretch of play. So I know everybody's calling for her head. Give her a little bit of time. Give her a little bit of time because we've had a little bit of bad luck when it comes to UCF women's
I don't know.
basketball.
Jen Meyer didn't get a whole lot of time. I don't know.
Listen.
Well, I mean, and before you go to the next thing, I do want to bring this up. Ben Stout did some research. That's spelled the correct way, not the cow's way, right? And he researched something, and he wants to do an Allen's oxymoronic stat of the week. So, Ben, let's do that, and then we'll pivot back to women's tennis. Go ahead.
I'll be quick about it. I'm not being quick about it now that we've given up 90 or more points in regulation 3 times this season. Okay. Obviously we gave up 109 against LSU but that was in triple overtime. So 90 points or more in regulation. We've done that 3 times this season now with tonight's loss where we gave up 108 points. In Johnny Dawkins' tenure, how many times have we given up more than 90 points in regulation prior to this season? Do you guys have a guess on that?
Like how many games?
How many games, non-overtime games, have we given up more than 90 points in Johnny Dawkins' tenure here at UCF?
Josh, I'm going to let you take a stab at that first, so you don't look up.
I think it's going to be low, like 2 or 3. Like we've doubled the amount this year, so I'm thinking I'm gonna hedge on 3.
Okay, I'm gonna take the over on that, and I'm gonna go because he's been here a really long time.
Yeah, it's been 8 years.
I'm gonna say 7. That's gonna be my hit.
You are over by 7 games. Roger,
we have never given up 90 points?
Never given up 90 points in a regulation a game that ended in 90 or ended in regulation. We have never given up 90 points or more in Johnny Dawkins' tenure in a game that ended in regulation. Now, one of those was a win this year when we beat FAU 100-94. But that being said, we've given up more than 90 points in overtime games prior to this season, and obviously gave up 109 to LSU in a triple overtime game earlier this season as well. But we've done that before, but never in a game that ended in regulation have we given up 90 or more points. So that's how's that for filling in for Alan on the oxymoron?
That's a good one.
I think Alan's got to run for his money for his job. I'm just putting it out there. I mean I was
clicking through as we were talking just to make sure I could see it, and
I knew it was going to be low, but I didn't think it was that low.
Now let me say this. Let me say this about that, and I make that joke about Alan, because I hate to say but, Alan is amazing at stats, and he also does all of our notes, including this week, in spite of him not being here. So even when he's out, he still does our notes for us. So
I will tell you,
just wanted to try to fill his shoes for one show with a
well,
stat.
Ben, what are you, like size 15 or something like that? I mean, come on.
Actually, I
all right, 17. Oh my gosh, size 17.
So I will tell you 2 things. One, Alan is phenomenal at that and great at doing the notes, and rarely does the stats that sports that he doesn't watch, because I have to update them most of the time, but he sometimes tries. Also, James H. Hilton
tries. Wow.
James H. Hilton was the first alumni to be the president of Iowa State University, not related. And then we're going to go back to said things and women's tennis. Right back in. Women's tennis beat Georgia Southern 6-1 in Orlando on January 19th. And they were going to go to the ITA kickoff. It's actually where the men's tennis team is going to go next week, but they were at separate locations on the West Coast. The men's team is going to Tucson, which I'm glad
It's
I'm not going to
fine.
be there to watch them. They'll probably win. I'm not going to be there.
Yes.
But the women's team was going to LA. And unfortunately, because of what's going on in LA, they decided not to travel to LA for the IT kickoff, even though I believe they are still the competition is still being held. There's a note on ucfknights.com if you want to read up more about that. So their next game.
Before you go forward on that, let me take a moment to say shout out to all of not just LA Knights, but also everybody in LA and everything that you're going through. We in Florida go through it with hurricanes, and people are supportive. The folks that are still in North Carolina that are recovering from their hurricane damage, and the folks that are going through what they're going through in LA. I did not see this in the notes beforehand, but I did donate. So if you can, please, the people around the country help us when we're going through hurricane relief. Please help them if you can. It's the right thing to do if you can, like no pressure, but if you can, help the folks that have gone through so much, because it's not just the people that you hear about, the celebrities and stars that have lost everything, which is terrible. But also the regular Jimmies and Joes that are out there that have lost so much. And those folks, if you don't want to give to them, the firefighters that are out there, as far away as from Canada, they're coming down and bringing airplanes to fight the fires. And I hate to, we've had a great show, we've had a fun show, but this is real.
Yeah.
And this is something that affects real people's lives. I've donated, and I'm not saying that to get any kind of kudos or anything like that. If you can give, please give, because people do so much for us nationally when we go through what we go through with the hurricanes. So if you can give, please give. I'm not going to say to give to any specific charity or anything. Do your research, find out the ones that give directly to the people that are there. But if you can, Night Nation, please give, and do it anonymously, and do it for the reason that we all do that, and they do it for us. It's because we are Americans and they are in need, period.
True.
So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Should I lighten it up for 1 second?
Yes, you should.
Sure.
I wanted to put that out there because we go through it every single year. I mean, we dodged hurricanes. Orlando got hit last year. I was in Orlando for the last hurricane, and people, people lose their livelihoods, and we all know what kind of stress that involves. These folks lost everything, and if you can give, please give. And I'm only asking that as an American and as a fellow citizen and as a neighbor of the good people in California. So sorry about that.
No, it's okay. One of my best friends, Kat, is in LA, and she was in Malibu when all this was happening, and was there with a family she works for. When they got the alert that they were going to try to clear out Malibu after Palisades got, I won't say wiped out, but it's not good.
It got wiped out. Let's be real. I've been in Southern California quite a bit. I have a lot of friends there. Like, they're good people.
That evacuation text, then 30 minutes later, that it was not a real text, it was not good for anyone. So I will agree with that. And I will lighten it up just for a moment because, Roger, you know why you didn't see this before we got into the podcast, right? Because
we were watching the Iowa State game. That's why.
No, because Alan didn't update the sports he doesn't watch.
That's because he doesn't watch them.
I know the women's tennis has their next game at February 2nd, so it's going to be a hot minute in Orlando versus FIU. Well, right back on beat. Men's tennis, they are the team that you should be watching of the sports that you do not watch. They are 5-0.
No. The Alan does not watch. Everybody else watches it. Alan just doesn't.
It's not just
Okay.
Allen. Men's
Okay.
tennis beat Wichita State 6-1 in Orlando on January 15th. They beat Florida Gulf Coast 4-0 and Southern Miss 7-0 on the same day on January 17th. They are 5-0. And sophomore and Medi, I if you had a pronunciation guide on the website, I would get it right. I don't want to
Oh,
ruin your.
no. You get to say it
Oh,
because
did
we
I
used
say
to
it?
do this with
Okay.
Andre,
Always
yeah.
seems like it's
Andrew
easy
on
to-
Nightline. Do you remember
Break it
this,
down.
Ben? No, you remember with
Of course.
Andrew on Nightline? I
You'd
would
always give him the toughest ones to read.
I would do the notes for that show, and I
I-
would give him the absolute most difficult names, and I would put that in his
Well, listen, I'm pretty certain we got Medi right. Medi is a sophomore. He's from Morocco.
It looks like
no.
And
You get
Medi,
to say the last name.
I'm going to let me
Okay,
get
all right,
to
all right,
it.
all right.
Medi Benchakroon is the Big 12 Conference Men's Tennis Player of the Week and only the second men's tennis player to earn that honor. The next game is the ITA kickoff. This one is actually in Tucson. They're going to play Oklahoma State on the 25th at 4 p.m. Eastern, and either USC or probably more than likely number 6 Arizona on January 26th with time to be determined. Lastly,
Pause.
What?
I will say this about that. This men's tennis team and this women's tennis team have been very, very good for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
So if you're not following them, please do support them. Golf is another one, and so is rowing. And I know that sounds like, okay, well, we care about football, we care about basketball, whatever, right? Support them because we have one of the top in the country tennis teams. Actually, I won't say teams, programs in the country. So this is someone you want to a program that you want to follow because they are consistently good. So please make sure that you're following them.
Absolutely, 100%. That being said, the UCF dance team made history this last week.
Her story?
I don't know. They were history, medaling in the hip hop finals for the first time in program history. They were third behind UCLA and San Diego State. So I guess California knows how to party. And co-ed cheer finished 5th for its 26th top 5 finish. And UCF,
Hold on. You've been telling us all season long about this cheer routine, and that if we hit it, yeah. So but they should not have gotten 5th place. I'm sorry,
probably not. But from what I've read,
my daughter does cheer. They should not have hit
Alabama. I think didn't Alabama basically have almost our same routine, like something weird.
100%.
It was very odd. All I can say is that thankfully the green the blue cows or green UConn. I like green UConn. I got to use that more. Green UConn did not win.
Blue cloud.
Yeah,
blue cows because no. Blue cows. It's got to be blue cows because I coined that phrase. Green UConn.
Okay, blue cows.
Blue cows. It is.
Okay, Blue Cows did not win, and I guess they hired some pretty amazing staff and went and did some. There's a reason they've been doing well, but Linda Gooch is a reason.
Awesome. But Linda Gooch has been here for years and years and years and years and years, and is a well-known person in the cheer sport, and 100% deserves your support.
And the Cows have another number 2 to celebrate for decades to come, I'm sure.
But
no trophies, no championship trophies.
No. Well, we
except for Rocky the Bull.
Yeah, that's nah. So that's all the things that Alan will not watch. We're good
for this week. All right. So I just want to say this. Thank you everyone for following, liking, commenting, supporting us through all of this. We will be converting the Nightline. As you know, we have our roots in the Nightline podcast. We will be converting the Nightline Twitter account to the Knighted Ones Twitter account. So those of you that follow Nightline podcast, which Ben participated in and was a key member of, Trey was, etc., we'll be converting that Twitter account. So all of you will be welcome to the family. One thing that I ask of all of you is that if you enjoy what we do, and we enjoy doing it with you, because this is a show that is designed to include your participation. If you enjoy what we do, please tell others. One of the things that we don't have the time for, unfortunately, because we enjoy what we do, but we don't have a lot of time outside of this, is we don't get the word out as effectively as we should.
Yeah.
So if you could, please obviously subscribe, follow, and tell your friends. We do this for Knight Nation. We love what we do. We love doing this with you. And the more friends that we have, the bigger family that we grow. We don't make any money off of this. We just enjoy spending time with you. So please tell your friends, and we appreciate your support. So I know that's super serious. Make sure you support our North Carolina folks. Make sure you support our LA folks if you can. And if there's anything that you'd like to see, hear, communicate, talk about, incorporate into our show, we would love to have you be a part of it. So thank you so much, Knight Nation. And shout out to Britt, who's in the hospital right now. If you guys know Jan and Britt,
I didn't know.
Yeah, she's in the hospital right now. I love Jan and Britt. I've met them both. They're wonderful people, big supporters of UCF, do a lot of things with UCF. She, unfortunately, it looks like, as of the last update from Jan, it looks like it is food poisoning, which would be a great thing. But, still, Britt does many great things for UCF, and we support her. She's a lovely person, as is her mom, Jan. And if there's anything we can do to support her, obviously we'll be there. But if you're so inclined, say a prayer for them. If you're not, that's okay. Give them well wishes, and let's have them in our thoughts, because she is in the hospital, and she's having a tough time of it. So thank you so much, Knight Nation. Ben, Josh, I'm sorry I've been so serious tonight. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, it's okay. No, I just went on. I just went on Twitter.
Britt. We love you, Jan. We're
absolutely
praying for you for sure.
Yeah.
And if there's anything we can do, let us know, and we'll 100% support you. So go Knights and
charge on.
Charge on, baby.
So do you think I'm going to get anything from Cyclone Larry about all that Iowa State stuff? I mean, we have